This is the first year we're doing this virtual.
Wow.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us for this virtual Jurors Talk and Award ceremony for the Here and Now exhibition. It's a juried exhibition of student artwork here at William Paterson University Galleries. My name is Emily Johnsen, and I'm the gallery manager at the University Galleries. Today, jurors Leslie Knobler, Lily Prince, and Steve Rittler will announce awards for outstanding artworks and share insights on their selection. I just want to make a note that Professor Prince's connection is a little unstable, so we'll play that by ear, how much we can hear from her. We'll begin today's event with brief introductions of the jurors. The jurors will then announce the student awards and we'll answer some prepared questions. If you have a question for the jurors, please feel free to type your question into the Q&A box. This program is being recorded and will be available to view on the gallery's website in the near future. I would like to thank all those who made this event possible. We are grateful to the jurors for their participation, as well as the faculty and students who submitted artwork for consideration. This exhibition was realized with the support of staff from the Department of Art, including Casey Mathern and Tracy Sutton, as well as Gallery Director Kristen Evangelista. I'd also like to thank our graduate assistant, Taylor Cassisi, and intern, Allison Fanegas, for their help in installing the exhibition and promoting this event. As a reminder, the exhibition will be on view in the South Gallery in Bin Shan Hall through May 5th, and it's also available to view online through the gallery's website. We'll also provide links at the end of this presentation so that you can find out more information about the show and find the virtual exhibition. We also have a very brief virtual program survey to be provided at the end and would appreciate your participation with that. So now I'd like to introduce our jurors. Leslie Knobler works in digital, mixed media, fiber, and book arts. She holds a BFA from the University of Michigan School of Art in Ann Arbor, an MA in computer graphics from New York Institute of Technology, and an MFA in interdisciplinary art from City University of New York, Hunter College. Her recent installations reinvent sacred and mystical artifacts, employing alternative digital printmaking. Her current work involves portraits of early 20th century marginalized people who showed resilience and even salvation through their creativity. The subtext of her work brings issues such as ethnophobia, immigration, intolerance, escape, and refuge to light. She received artist grants from the Surface Design Association and Puffin Foundation and has been invited to do a specially awarded project at the Glasgow School of Art in Scotland in 2022. Time flies. Professor Knobler's exhibits include the New York Visual Arts Museum's Digital Salons, New Jersey State Museum, the Noyes and Montclair Art Museums in New Jersey, Old Main Art Museum in Arizona, Athenaeum Museum in Pennsylvania, Kemper Museum of Art in Missouri, Afrographics of Pretoria, Eurographics in Barcelona, the Nanjing Art Institute, and Symposia on Digital Art in Bangkok and London. She has recently published an article, African Pattern, Identity, and Relevance in Contemporary Surface Design in the International Journal of Design and Society. Her work is in artist book collections of universities and museums and has been featured in the New York Times, New Jersey Star Ledger, Surface Design Journal, Leonardo, Textiles, The Art of Mankind, the Review Midwest, and her recent portrait project was featured in New Jersey Jewish News and womenswork.art. Lily Prince earned her BFA from the Rhode Island School of Design, her MFA from Bard College, and she studied at Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture. She has also participated in the Bronx Museum's Art in the Marketplace program, studied abroad on RISD's European Honors Program in Rome, and was awarded artist residencies at the Gallery Wheat in Arles, France in 2019. Alana New York State Historic Site, 2018, Draftsman's Congress at the New Museum in New York City, 2016, and the BAU Institute in Italy, 2013. Prince is exhibited widely both nationally and internationally, and she has had solo exhibitions at Vassar College, Naples Museum, Little John Contemporary, and most recently at Cross Contemporary Art in Saugerties, New York. Lily Prince's work was commissioned through the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs and has appeared in the New York Times, New York Magazine, the Brooklyn Rail, New American Paintings, among numerous others. Prince has lectured widely, including at Yale, Vassar, Cornell, RISD's European Honors Program, Pratt Institute, and for the Artist Talk on Art series. Lily Prince was recently awarded the highly prestigious Pollock Krasner Grant for her lifelong commitment to and achievements in the field of painting. Upcoming exhibitions include Sunrise Sunset at the Albany Airport and the USPS Art Project Invitational at Greenlee Art Space in Signal Hill, California. Lily lives in New York and is an associate professor at William Paterson. Steve Rittler is an independent designer, animator, illustrator, performance artist, and educator originally from Philadelphia, who now lives in Queens. Steve graduated from the Philadelphia College of Art, the University of the Arts, with a BFA in illustration and an animation minor, and also Brooklyn's Pratt Institute with an MFA computer graphics and animation. He has animated, designed, storyboarded, and modeled for many companies in New York City, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles, including Disney Interactive. Films featuring his work as an animator or designer have been screened and awarded nationally and internationally, including at the Annecy Animated Film Festival in France, and his own animated film, Nor Gloom of Night, has been screened at the International SIGGRAPH Conference, the first Beijing International New Media Arts Exhibition and Symposium, and at, Steve, you'll have to correct me, BUDI, Booty and Soul?
Yeah, Booty.
Okay. Steve is a member of ACM SIGGRAPH and served on the New York City ACM SIGGRAPH Local Chapter Board of Directors from 2000 to 2015. He has presented courses on animation production at international SIGGRAPH conferences in San Diego and Los Angeles, and at the SIGGRAPH Asia Conference in Singapore. He served as chair of New York City SIGGRAPH's New York Metropolitan Area College Computer Animation Festival, MetroCAF, in 2006 and 2014, and was its principal designer, illustrator, and animator. He is also a member of the New York chapter of Women in Animation. Steve is a professor of animation at William Paterson University and a graduate program director for its MFA in visual art. He has his own company, Muse Machine Productions, from which he produces freelance and personal projects. He also plays bass and sings in a punk band called Penultimate. So welcome to our faculty members and jurors. So next we are going to move on to announcing the student awards from the exhibition. And then we'll ask the faculty members some questions about their selections and kind of open it up for dialogue about their choices. So Steve, we'll start with you. We're going to do this category by category, mentioning first, second, and third place awards per category as it applies. And we will finish with the 3 prizes for best in show.
Hey, thank you, Emily. So I'm going first because we're doing the animation award first. And yeah, first place for animation is Maria Moreno for A Poodle with Ball.
We're going to do applause, right? Okay.
Sure.
I'm next. First place for digital art goes to Brianna Karpiak for Fight Fascism. Thank you, Emily.
Okay, back to me. These are the awards for drawing. First place, we have an untitled work by Kathleen Burrow.
It's also on our postcard for the exhibition.
Yeah. Should I have done that in reverse order? That might be more dramatic.
Nope, you're okay. We'll do best in show reverse order.
Okay. All right. Second place for drawing, we have Richard Honeychurch with Life.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, no. There we go. Yay.
A little anticlimactic now.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm a little trigger happy on the space bar.
Okay, I'm back again doing illustration. First place in illustration goes to Adam Reminisky. And this is very interesting. The title has changed to 3005. It was until now entitled Donald Glover. And maybe he'll tell us in the chat why he did that. Second place goes to Matthew Gonzalez for Persephone's Ascent. And third place goes to Joshua Lopez for Evening Forest.
All right, moving right along to photography.
Oh, I think we have painting next.
Oh, painting. Oh, I'm in painting. I'm sorry. All right. Skipping ahead. All right, so we're doing painting first. First place, we have Elizabeth Bradigan, Feed Off My Success. Well done, Elizabeth. For second place, we have Patrick Baj with The Cascading City. Psychedelia is Not Dead. And third place, we have Alexis Walter with An Untitled Work.
We have just one award in photography. I recommend everybody read his interesting story that goes along with how he shot this photo. It really, sorry, let me mute for a second.
Sure, that's fine. In the interim, while we're looking at this particular painting, I highly suggest seeing the show in person because there's details to this work that you would only.
Oh, definitely. All right, the ringing stopped. So photography, first place, read his description. It was really adorable, engaging, and so on. Chris Lacetti, no gas. And hopefully somebody will correct my pronunciation.
It's actually my car. No, I'm just kidding. That is not. Okay, so moving right along to printmaking. We have 2 awards for printmaking. For first place, we have Sean Kozak, Like Seasons.
I pressed the space bar. I hope it doesn't happen twice. Oh, it did. Sorry, there's a delay at this end.
All right. And for second place, you've seen it already, Jessica Santana, Squiggle Print.
It looks so animated. I could see why.
Yeah.
It won. Okay, next category is sculpture. We ended up only having one winner in this category because one of the pieces came apart. It wasn't available anymore, according to Emily. Deconstructed on its own, literally. And that award goes to Mary Higgins for abstract sculpture.
That one's really cool.
Good job, Mary.
Yeah. Okay. I probably need a tetanus shot after making that one. Let me see. Next award is for textiles. Textiles, we have first place award for Larry Felix with Sombrero. Very cool print pattern there. And for second place, we have Daria Metzner with Bloody Seduction.
Okay, so next we have our best in show category. So we're actually going to begin with third best in show. And Leslie, I'll let you take that.
And after I do third, we'll have Steve come in for second and I'll come back for first place, okay?
Oh, okay.
Just figure we share it more that way. Third best in show is Patricia Pazzi for Kahia. Yay. Hopefully my pronunciation is close on that one.
Yeah.
And Yeah, congratulations.
Really cool. Okay, and it is my particular honor to award the second best in show to probably my favorite piece in the show, Jessica Santana, Pretzel Dog.
It's worth noting that this has made the gallery staff incredibly hungry each day. But we do love it.
And also that pretzels are especially reminiscent of growing up in Philadelphia. So
yeah, I know.
Second set of kudos for that.
Yeah, let me know if this thing's for sale. All you need is some mustard.
So I get to announce the best in show just because it's the hardest to pronounce, and I'm probably going to make an absolute mess of this. Please, I apologize ahead of time. We probably should have cleared correct sounds and pronunciations before we started this. But in any event, like, remember what gosh, what's his name? John Travolta did with one of those winners.
Idina Menzel.
I kind of feel as nervous as him right now. Okay. Yeah, Idina Menzel, right. Okay. So the best in show goes to Taiwo Adiyifa for Grandpa's Smile.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations, one and all.
Congrats, everybody. And yeah, if you guys want to mispronounce our names, you can.
Yeah, this is fine. All right, so I'm going to advance the slide. Here's some information about the exhibition, just so I'll keep this up on the screen. And I can go back to specific works if any of the jurors need me to, just let me know. The first link is exhibition information, where you can find our press release, and the one at the bottom is the virtual exhibition, where you can see images of the works. And a reminder that for COVID, currently our gallery hours are Tuesday through Thursday, 11 to 5 p.m. or by appointment. I believe it's this coming Saturday that there is an open house event, and so the galleries will be open from 10 to 2. Kristen can correct me in the chat if I got that wrong. All right, just a reminder, I can't see the Q&A box while I'm sharing my screen, so perhaps if you want to record these links, I'm going to stop sharing for the conversation portion, and then I'll bring this back up at the end. All right. Okay, and then, so now we're going to move to some questions that I have for the jurors. And Lily, you're welcome to chime in too.
Thank you.
And again, congratulations to everyone who made it into the show and who received special awards. That's
huge congratulations.
Definitely. Okay, so the first question I would like to ask the jurors, and feel free to expand on any of these questions as you see fit. I think a lot of people would like to know what criteria you took into consideration when selecting works for the show. So could you kind of walk us through your process a little bit?
Well, I can say that for me, you know, at first glance, I was really just looking for work that looked technically really good and had some kind of emotional, you know, personal voice or, you know, expression that touched me. So that's, you know, I look for the same things when I look at art, you know, at galleries and museums and, you know, just what touches me personally, but also has something technically strong about it and something interesting and maybe surprising that I haven't seen before.
My thoughts are somewhat aligned with that, but I would have to say when I first looked, I did sort of a quick once through, and it begins with the idea of people or humanity, kind of like if anybody's heard about Alice Neal's new show at the Met called People Come First. Does it speak to me as a human? Is it soul touching in some way? And for me, that also enters a little bit into the sphere of social relevance and social justice. So if I saw some of that in there, it really did touch me. And the second, just as Professor Prince mentioned, does it reflect deeper thought, hard work, diligence, knowledge about technique, and really hard work, good work ethic.
Oh, you're muted, Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, I can, okay, got it. I guess for me, the biggest thing is, like I went through the first time and just looked at it to see what kind of grabbed me visually, like what set off bells, basically. And, then there's the intellect behind the whole thing. I mean, what Professor Prince and Professor Knobler said is absolutely correct. Those were, certainly things I was taking into account. I always, it's kind of hard to say, but I always look for sincerity, if that makes any sense. I mean, if that, like a feeling of, commitment to an image, that this is what is coming out of this person's head, coming out of their hands, coming out of, their hearts, in other words. That's pretty much what I was looking for.
Thank you. In mentioning the sincerity, it made me also think about vulnerability to some degree. If you haven't had the opportunity to see the artist statements on the virtual exhibition format, students have included statements on their inspiration, sometimes the process, but it gives a lot of insight into their work, which I think is particularly special. And Leslie, that was a really good point too about timely topics and relevance and that kind of thing. I see quite a bit of that in the show this time around, which leads me to another question. If you noticed any trends or patterns in this year's submissions, so including ones that you reviewed that aren't on the show, was there anything that stood out for you?
So Emily, that ended up being a really tough question. Mm-hmm. I thought about it. I looked at the pieces again. I thought about it again because as a group, we never discussed this. Mm. So I kind of did a mathematical assessment as I went through a bunch of the images and then thought about how that impacted me as I was jurying them. And I realized that there were more images of individual portraits, sort of people alone. I don't know if that was more in the collective unconscious about, our separation and our quarantine, but I think there was more of that. And oddly enough, I think there was a little bit more images that pertain to food. Could it be quarantine related? I don't know, but we were all near our kitchens for the last 13 months. So there you go. Especially pretzel dog.
Yeah.
I think for me, I felt like there was an overall sadness to the work, but I'm not sure if I would have perceived it that way under different circumstances. So I think I may be looking at the work through the lens of being isolated for a year and knowing that we all have been. So it's an interesting question. Would I actually perceive the work differently had we not just all gone through a year of isolation?
That's really good point.
Yeah, I would agree with both of my colleagues there. It certainly has been kind of a melancholy sort of presentation of things. It's been a weird time for everybody, but without like being able to look at like past shows right there and kind of seeing things, it's sort of hard to grab a trend really. But I thought that everything was pretty strong though. I thought the competition was pretty intense. So whatever is going on, it was it was good for the work.
That's great. Thank you. And then we kind of touched upon it already in light of COVID and the quarantine. If you thought the pandemic, the situation of having these hybrid classes and that, if that in any way affected the work in the show. I know there are a few pieces that directly tie into the pandemic. I believe it's Anna Garcia's work for one with the subject matter, but it also made me wonder if since more students might be creating outside the campus studios and from home, if perhaps the pandemic may have influenced size of work or the type of media created. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I guess I could start again.
Please.
I actually was at 2 meetings on this subject over the last 6 days. So as I was attending the meeting, I was also taking some notes. So I'm going to read from my notes. I think our last year was a pandemic, but it went beyond the virus. It still is a pandemic. We had a second one a second crisis to grapple with, racism, run amok. We could call it the social justice virus or crisis. And then we also had the economic one. Mm-hmm. So there were a lot of things to contend with. And I saw many pieces that reflected either one or more of these, or pieces that maybe just spoke to the angst or maybe the loneliness of crisis more generally. And maybe that was what Professor Prince was alluding to. Mm-hmm. But also, I can mention something on the more positive side, which is that I saw some of our efforts, maybe our international efforts toward creating a more decolonialized or decolonized base from which to learn and study, and highlighting people and their heritages heritage and races from all over the world. So I was glad to see that on a positive note.
That's a really great point.
See, it's a hard question to answer. That's why I had to write it down. That's why I had to write it down.
I appreciate the thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible that none of this would affect anyone. I mean, it's things have been really, really kind of dire. I don't know who said the quote. I was just looking for it, but it's an age of nightmares and we're but children of the age. I mean, this is something that's happening right now. I mean, we're confronted with horror. Everyone knows someone who's been sick or passed away or, might be sick now. And we've had a lot of crazy political stuff, and I don't want to get into that too much, but, there have been a lot of wake-up calls in this past 4 or 5 years.
Even with this week.
Last year, yeah. And, there's a lot going on right now that, that has to be taken into account. And I think you can't be an artist and be confronted with this stuff and have it not affect you and affect the way you're thinking about, your expression. I mean, so it's, there's some pretty heavy stuff going on right now. And I think, it's up to us to interpret it somehow, at least in our own way.
It's a really great point. The fact that so much is going on and then we're still sort of in isolation just due to the pandemic. So art ends up being the vehicle for expression at these different times.
And I just want to say that, I really want to applaud all the students who did submit work, because I think that one thing we're not maybe addressing is how much depression not only affects the work that's made, but being able to follow through, and I think that everyone probably, or most people have been under some kind of spell of depression, anxiety. It's really crazy, difficult times, and being able to, make art is a salvation, but it also takes a lot of faith and follow through. And I think that, photographing it and editing it and submitting it and writing a statement, all of those things that all of us do as artists has probably been hard, harder than ever for our students to follow through on. So I just want to applaud everyone, sort of a extra round of applause.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's hard enough just to stay focused on your coursework in this divided situation without colleagues and peers and everyone else to sort of buoy us along. But then to go the extra mile, yeah, they really did show their commitment and their ambition. So rah-rah to everybody, even those who didn't win special category awards. Congrats.
I think it also speaks to the students' resiliency too. So that does, it's not going unnoted.
Right.
Great job, everyone. So it doesn't appear that we have any questions in the Q&A. So I want to invite the attendees, if you have any particular questions for the jurors or a specific juror, you're welcome to enter those there. But I would also like to give the jurors the opportunity to ask students questions because they could respond in the chat. So I don't know if you can see who's attending, but we have a number of the students from the exhibition currently watching. So if anybody has any questions, I was just looking to see if Adam's here. Adam, do you want to explain your title change for one? As Leslie asked. No pressure. If you're not ready to, that's fine. But if anybody else would like to chime in through the chat to the conversation or things that the jurors
I have a question. Is Jessica Santana here?
Yes.
Okay, because both her story and Chris's about the photography are so good that they should both type a little synopsis of those. The idea of pretzel dog. Any pet owner / dog owner will really connect with it. And also, why make it look exactly like a piece of food? That's my question to her.
Yeah, so we'll give them some time. Make sure, students, if you're replying into the chat, that you make it visible to both panelists and attendees if you'd like. Otherwise, we can repeat your responses. Yeah, pretzel dog. I am a dog owner too. And I responded to her statement as well, and particularly enjoyed that piece. And I'd love to hear her reasoning for the food item, but I always think if something's so cute, you want to eat it up. So it's kind of funny in that way. Any other jurors want to throw out some questions for the students?
I guess I would just be curious to hear anyone's comments on, what they feel the hardest part about making art during these crazy isolated times has been. Is it lack of feedback, lack of peer support or instructor support? I mean, what's the hardest thing? Or maybe being stuck in the house with the whole family and not really having space and time and privacy. I'm just curious what they feel the hardest challenge has been.
There are a few works in the show that specifically address the anxieties of the isolation and that. So I don't know if you were able to see some of the statements, but I know that was felt. So even if students don't feel comfortable speaking on that specifically, you can see that in their statements too.
Well, I have a question.
Right.
Here comes something. Wait.
Thanks, Adam. So I'll repeat this in case it's not included in the recording. So Adam says that his artwork was part of a series of multiple pieces surrounding the initial portrait that was displayed. So again, this is the Donald Glover portrait. My other works in the series incorporated aspects of his social character and career in music. The name 3005 spoke more to a broader idea, connecting to my other works rather than, just having the title be his name, which is obvious. Yeah, very recognizable, the portrait. And then Jess with Pretzel Dog says, I've been spending a lot of time with my 3 dogs and watching them sleep. And they love to sleep curled up together. And I like to compare their positions to the things around me. I also have been making food a lot during quarantine, so I thought it fit. Yeah, definitely. I interrupted you, Steve. What question were you going
Oh,
to?
no, that's okay. Something popped into the chat. I figured that was more important.
Yeah.
Well, my question is this. I know a lot of artists to whom anxiety and depression are like spinach to Popeye. Did anyone out there find this situation we're in to be particularly inspiring? I mean, in some way, because I know a lot of artists who pick this kind of stuff up and run with it. Does that describe anyone here today?
And while we wait for any responses, I would like to know if that's true for the jurors' work. So what you all are working on currently, are you inspired or influenced by current times?
Well, I guess with me, it's that I'm writing a lot of angry kind of pop songs. Like, or punk stuff, I guess.
Leslie, how about you? Some of the topics that your work addresses might relate to these current times. Is there anything?
Yeah, about 2 or 3 weeks into our quarantine, it was really lockdown a year ago. I responded to a call out or an invitation to create pieces that were called prayers to fill the sort of heading of prayers for the pandemic. And I did work on that in a variety of different ways for, months and months. And the idea was to create like prayer flags that you could post somewhere that would be visible to people as they were outdoors. And my quote prayer flags were some of the first masks that people were starting to. Not that many people were wearing masks. If you think back a year ago, we weren't yet instructed that that was part of the safety regimen, but everybody that worked in healthcare had to wear them. And again, like a week or two into lockdown, I was walking in a sort of woodsy area, and I saw the first piece of mask garbage, mask pollution, and I photographed it, and that just generated a whole series of ideas based on masks becoming prayer flags. And I, of course, then there was a massive call that healthcare was really, really short on any kind of mask at all that they could possibly use to give, kids and patients in waiting rooms and emergency departments and ambulances and everything. So I was sitting around sewing them just late at night, figuring, I got to do something. So I had a pile of them I could also use to create, quote, flags with.
There's some really interesting answers in the chat right now.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Checking out.
Mary Higgins says, I felt completely pulled out of the darkness. I would have otherwise totally gotten lost. So in reference to creating during these times. And Matthew DiMartini, I think one of the hardest parts of creating work in isolation has just been finding the motivation. We've really been stuck in home with our own memories and in our own heads. My own work came out of anxiety and depression, both because of the pandemic and some choices I made from the summer. I have dealt with depression and anxiety for a lot of my life, so it's been hard to be productive, but also has provided much inspiration for me. Thank you for sharing that, Matthew. And Daria, I think I became more abstract in my work, especially when it comes to expressing emotions. I really focused on colors and how emotions can be expressed by different colors and shapes. And Brianna, one of our award winners, there was a sort of artistic starvation this past year. So the spontaneity of a few current events felt like a drop of rain in a desert in terms of inspiration. It's really great.
I think those are all really powerful and beautiful sentiments, and I really appreciate everyone sharing them with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's important. I mean, I often find myself inspired by adversity. Mm-hmm. So I was just wondering about that.
Elizabeth Bradigan, the award winner in painting. Being home a lot and alone with my thoughts has been a lot and tough on my mental health. I've been remembering things and trying to almost piece it together, which has inspired my recent work. I would imagine, I don't really create myself, I'm not a practicing artist, but I would imagine that's a helpful outlet too, to have those creative outlets to create and just kind of express yourself in that way.
It certainly helps to make sense of the world. And I
Yeah.
think one of the weirdest things about this whole period has been just the exposure of the fragility of so many of the institutions that we rely upon, like our democracy, our economy, the world economy, just the way people relate to one another. It's really been eye-opening in many ways.
Yeah, talk about the world economy. To put this on the lighter side, now we're going to have a lot of trouble getting our bubble tea.
Yeah.
The bobo balls are tied up somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So,
like they were stuck in the Suez Canal as a giant barge.
there are many boats piled up on one of the ports in California. They just can't get to them fast enough.
Right.
But like, if we get our shots and if we distance and wear masks, we can get ourselves back on track, and we won't have to worry about toilet paper shortages anymore or bubble tea shortages anymore. So I think there is a light at the end of this tunnel. We can just loop in the 50% of people who haven't really acted on it yet.
Yeah.
This all leads me to question a few things. So as part of the gallery staff here, we also had to go about putting together these kinds of virtual programs and we saw that throughout the museum field, a lot of different institutions responding to the needs of their audiences and that. I'm wondering if the jurors, do you think anything from this period will stick and what becomes the new normal? Or do you think there are any benefits to what we've been through?
I think that artists being able to have validation for showing virtually is a really interesting new topic of discussion and debate. I think that it was a little bit questionable, at least in the painting world, and now it's considered completely fine, equal,
Completely acceptable. Yeah, and that's
Yeah, and I'm just trying to say the opportunities because of that are really quite amazing. I think there are a lot of fantastic opportunities that have come out of this in terms of being artists and, how it affects the art world, not just in terms of galleries, but in terms of conversations, Zoom chats with artists. I started, just for an example, a little Zoom chat with an artist who relocated to Mexico and an artist who lives in Seattle and one in Brooklyn. And the four of us, are doing a painting chat group, it's just for fun. I mean, just for support and interest. And so I think there are, a lot of art world people who are doing that. And so exhibitions and Zoom chats and, almost like armchair travel, are all really fantastic aspects of, how to make lemonade out of this situation.
Yeah, probably all this stuff that happens through online portals was bound to happen, but we sooner or later, but we really made it really, really, really sooner. And I agree that especially opened up opportunities for people who are in previously marginalized communities, which had a lot of trouble getting a foot in the door to galleries and especially museums, art museums. And in fact, in my studies about decolonizing our program and curricula all around the world, I'm on an international committee dealing with that. We've realized that it has opened up major doorways, major opportunities for women, especially who were really shut out of a lot of in-person and like real life, quote unquote, spaces and places to be engaged with their work historically for ages. And of course that rolls over into all sorts of other marginalized cultures and communities. So that was kind of an interesting outcome. And the idea of collaborating through electronic media as well, or, social media, I guess I should say, as Professor Prince mentioned, is also important.
Yeah, and actually I'll just add that there was this great project started by an artist in Brooklyn called the USPS Art Project. And, I've been participating in that, and it's been great. And there have been about 5 different shows in actual places, in real venues. So it's not a digital exhibition. And the idea was that you would pick a partner and create the start of a piece of work, a painting on paper or sculpture, actually, and mail it, to make use of the Postal Service, because we were trying to support that. Mail it to your partner, and then they would finish the piece, and you would photograph it before and after, and then the actual piece would be mailed to the exhibition venue. And so there have been a lot of great venues that have hosted this show, and it's just grown and grown in the art world, and it's been really amazing. And so I told my students about it, and they were really interested in doing something similar. So I have 3 different teams of students who are doing that exact kind of project, starting it at home, mailing it to the other person, and it's really been great. So collaboration amongst artists who normally would not collaborate has been really terrific.
I love that. Thank you for explaining that well.
Yeah.
I think the connectivity, I hope we hold on to that. The connectivity and the awareness of what's going on in other parts of the world. And like I said, I hate to keep saying the same thing over and over again, but, in the government, in, society, I mean, things like that, that people are paying more attention to now, basically because you're in and watching the news all the time. I kind of hope we hold on to that a little bit. And I just wanted to mention something else in the chat. Brianna Karpiak wrote in again, said frustration was a large motivator in art this year. Frustration is a large motivator in general, but yes, a lot of really good art comes from frustration. And I know that it's kind of a particular motivator of mine, actually. So.
I've also been reading recently about another positive outcome was that being stuck inside and using, the internet as our portal has actually opened up a huge number of opportunities for people with disabilities, especially physically disabled people. And there are now kind of forums for how to get more of their work represented in the art world. So, and that wasn't happening before. So they were much more able to participate if they were limited by physical, handicaps. And it's sort of this great outcome that nobody would have expected.
Yeah, it's interesting because in many ways this has leveled the playing field, but in other ways it hasn't. I mean, because a lot of this got away from a lot of people who can't afford the internet and who can't afford computers and things like that. And, there's still like the haves and the have-nots right now. And I think this needs to be really kind of addressed. I mean, the internet is a utility. It's not luxury. And, the sooner we start thinking about it that way, the better off everyone's going to be.
Yeah, really great point. And I love what Professor Prince and Knobler said about the connectivity. So almost being in isolation has forced people to seek out collaboration or community that we wouldn't otherwise. So I think that's a really great point. If any students have anything to add in the chat about their connection to their peers through this experience, I'd be curious.
Yeah, please.
And if there's any questions from the attendees for the jurors, again, you can type it in the chat or the Q&A box. We have just a few minutes left, so we'll see if there's anything else coming in. And again, this show is up through May 5th, so it just opened this week. And I encourage you all to come by.
Everybody ready for the cicadas? Look it up, Brood 10. It's gonna be wild.
And the most well-used expression of the year that you're going to see on t-shirts everywhere is unmute yourself. Or I just muted myself. Is Taiwo here? The grand prize winner? I don't have a list of people.
I don't believe so. If you click on, it says panelists. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't see Taiwo.
Okay.
Participants.
Was anybody in his class or saw him work on this painting? And what do we know about his grandfather? His grandfather's happy but mysterious. I guess maybe nothing.
There's a statement I might be able to find quickly.
Oh, good.
Maybe. Kristen, I know you're on the call. If you want to include the attendee survey in the chat while I do this, you're welcome to add that now. Again, we encourage everyone to give us feedback on the format of this program and also the content. It helps us to plan for future programs. Let's see.
Emily, I'm going to have to run. I'm being kicked out of this recording studio.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, everyone. And thanks to all of the students who participated and who are just hanging on in difficult times. The light is at the end of the tunnel. I promise.
Oh, Professor Delora just corrected us, by the way, that Taiwo is female, not male. So thank you. And thanks for attending, Lily.
Thanks, everybody.
Sorry. I'm putting a link into the chat for everyone. This goes to the virtual exhibition. I will share Taiwo's statement here. I'll put that in the chat. So this painting depicts the vivid memory of my grandpa. Though he's often expressionless and reserved, he never fails to brighten up when his garden and childhood days are mentioned. Inspired by this imagery, I decided to dedicate this painting to my grandpa. Great. Again, congratulations.
I apologize so much for confusing the gender of that award winner. I feel terrible. Maybe that's an idea for future entries, is a slot for checking gender preference.
Yeah, pronouns. Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, pronouns. So no one else makes a fumble like that again.
No worries. Okay, let's see. We have one Q&A. Oh, never mind. That was just the, okay. All right. I think maybe we'll go ahead and wrap that up then. So feel free to check out the virtual exhibition, come by the galleries. We are open to the public when they visit. You can have your family members come. For the students who are online, we just ask that you fill out a quick survey for COVID tracing, but otherwise all are welcome to join us here. And I want to thank the panelists again for taking the time to be with us today. I know this is special for the students, especially when we can't all meet together. So, and thank you for everyone who joined. I'll post this recording in the next couple days on the gallery's website and social media. Okay.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. Good luck to the students for the rest of your semester.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to thank the gallery for doing such an amazing job, specifically Emily Johnsen and Kristen Evangelista and everyone else that gave us a hand collecting frames, Lauren Rosore, and Tracy Sutton, and even Bernard Suchet, who went out of his way to help me get some pieces made for students who live too far away. So a huge number of thanks has to go out all across the board, and definitely to the students who persevered. I mean, persevering through this, I am in awe of how well you've done.
Yeah, it's true. Thanks for letting us be a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
This is really great.
Thank you all.